Everybody squared away on the technical end. I see that Morgan is doing her last minute, good morning, Morgan, her last minute adjustments. And it seems as though she's ready, as is everyone else. We wanted to get together this morning to talk about a couple of things, most important of which is the CIAA tournament, which is upon us. Again, seems like only yesterday we had it, but that was a year ago. And I'm going to bring Major Gerald Smith up in just a couple of seconds to talk about what our operation is, what we expect to do to ensure that this is a safe event this year. He'll take some questions when he's done, and when he is through, we are going to shift gears a little bit and talk about another important item. So, without further delay, Major Gerald Smith.
Good morning. As Rob said, I'm Major Gerald Smith. I am the major of the Central Service Area, which includes the Uptown and the CIAA event. Today is Wednesday. The event started on Monday. We wish good health to all the competitors and to all the teams. And I guess that's the way that we will keep our focus, that this is about the tournament, although it brings, we're expecting over 100,000 people influx to come into town. If you've covered or watched the CIAA event in the past few years, you know that not very much happens at the beginning of the tournament, not off the court anyway. But as we move through the week, we are expected to see a total of about 100,000 people come into the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area for this event. And we are also, as that number continues to rise and as the days go along, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and including Sunday, although the championship game is on Saturday, we see the number of people in the Uptown area rise. Staffing, we have staffed up appropriately for the CIAA tournament. We feel that we are in a good place to where we will be able to deal with the crowd, provide safety, provide a secure environment for everyone, and also deal with traffic. Traffic for CIAA, as you know, is a condition of it being a successful event. A lot of people coming uptown. We'll do the best that we can to move that along, and if anybody is coming into the uptown area in reference to traffic, during those days should expect some delays. And it's just not CMPD who has done a good job with the traffic. City DOT has also opened up some streets around some construction sites so that we make sure that the traffic continues to flow. We see events all over Charlotte with this. Right now, I believe the basketball tournament is taking place at the Bojangles Coliseum. And at Bojangles, you see some pretty good-sized crowds, as well as on Independence and some of the other streets around there, increased traffic as well. We also have events going on downtown, as well as the Fan Fest. I believe yesterday was the educational day for CIAA. They also have some entertainment coming into town, Belle Biv DeVoe, and a lot of other things that will be taking place around the convention center. I'm pretty sure you guys have a lot of questions for me, and some of the things that I'll touch on, maybe I'll answer some questions for you before, would be Friday. Friday will be a big day for the city of Charlotte. We have Reverend Billy Graham's funeral taking place, starting that morning and ending in the afternoon, as well as CIAA. Some people may have concerns about traffic. We have staffed up wonderfully for the police department, and we believe that we will provide a safe environment for both. We are fortunate enough that these two events do not cross paths environmentally or physically. So we believe that we are able to deal with the traffic and the event for Billy Graham's funeral, and then switch and move some staffing over back to the downtown area where that evening we will see an increase in the crowds for the CIAA. Some of you may also have questions about the city's new permitting process that we have put into place, which is almost a one-stop shopping, which has helped out a great deal for us to know about events that are coming or venues that will pop up. And we have been working with the city's fire department, ABC, and a lot that have made that a very successful endeavor. I am sure that this is being the first year that we've done that. There will be some changes, maybe even some streamlining to come with that. But we see that as so far as a success. Man, having a hard time talking today. So, are there any questions that you would have?
Major, how does the new permitting process change your response both to the places that have gotten permits and also ones that maybe parties should pop up without a permit?
I will just give you a story. Last year, I was coming into work and saw several tents along Brevard Street, and I called Everyone in special events here at the police department, DOT, special events over at the city, none of us had an idea of what that was whatsoever. It actually started with the fire department to get approval that the tents were structurally sound, and then it moved on from there to the ABC. How does that change? Now, whenever someone comes in and wants to put an event up, not just a tent, but any other event, we all know at the same time. And I believe those tents went up later in the week. So for us, the police department, they called looking for off-duty resources, off-duty officers to work those venues, to actually help secure those venues. At that point in time, it was so late in the game, they had to scramble to find off-duty resources. And so it pushed a lot of the responsibility over to the on-duty officers to make sure that those events were actually secure. So did I answer your question? I want to make sure. I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. I want to make sure I answered your question.
Yeah, and what about if, now that there's a rule that property owners have to have the permit, what do you do now if some party just pops up unannounced without a permit? Does that give you more ability to stop those?
I don't believe it gives the police department any ability to stop it, but it gives the city of Charlotte the ability to address it.
In previous years, there's been some shooting incidents. Is your department doing anything to make sure that doesn't, anything different to make sure that doesn't happen this year?
We do the best that we can. There have been some shooting incidents in the past, and it's not representative of what the CIAA is about or what the city of Charlotte is about. But for CMPD, we work very closely, and our people in our intelligence unit put in a lot of work during the weeks and the months leading up, and any entertainment that is brought in that we know about, they do a great deal of work to see if there are any kind of beef going on between entertainers, and we do the best that we can to make sure that the venues, and even if there are movements, if they tell us about it, that we can address those. A lot of times, because the CIAA is so profitable, what we've seen in the past is that artists who come into town for one event at a venue, a lot of times will, during that week, be booked at another event. And that happens like that. And we do the best that we can to make sure that we have security and that we actually can adapt to the environment as it moves. So the CIAA is very fluent, very fluent. We have to watch things as it goes along.
Is it a concern for you that the same rapper who claimed he was shot at last time around is apparently going to be back for this event? And if so, have you had any conversations with that?
In my shop, I have not. I'm not sure if our intel people or someone has reached out. It's very possible. So I can't answer the question as to if we've talked to them about that. But yes, it does draw some concern that I believe Young Dolph is the artist. Yes, it does. And I would have to really ask our intel people to see if that beef has continued since CIAA last year, or if it's something that's going to be centered around CIAA last year and not move forward. But yes, it does draw us concern.
What else should we mention?
Can you give us ballpark staffing?
I do not have those numbers. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can tell you on Friday, we have 1,950 officers. Because of the Reverend Graham's funeral and CIAA, we canceled days off that day so that we have more than enough officers to handle. And on that day, the priority that we have are 3 priorities, and they're all labeled number 1. That would be Reverend Billy Graham's funeral, CIAA, and the general calls for service that our citizens give.
Can you say again how many on Friday?
Everyone's working on Friday. All days are canceled on Friday. No days off on Friday for no officers.
We appreciate you, Major.
CIAA currently now at Bojangles, but it won't stay there all week.
No, it moves over to the Spectrum Arena on Thursday.
On Thursday, how does that change for you? Because I know Center City is already buzzing with people from CIAA. What's it look like Thursday for you in trying to work downtown, uptown?
As I said earlier, that as the week continues for CIAA, the number of people in the downtown increase as well too. So bringing the tournament downtown means there are more fans attending the games downtown, and it's a benefit for the fans too, because most of the hotels are downtown. They can now walk to and from Spectrum Arena. So we have more people walking around, we have more staffing, we have just more events going on, starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday. and Sunday sometimes.
Can you give a ballpark of percentage-wise what the bump would look like if you're in Uptown looking at security on Wednesday, looking at CMPD on Wednesday compared to what it looks like on Thursday?
It's a significant bump. I don't have those numbers, and I'm sorry, I don't have those for you.
Major, we appreciate your time, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. So going from basketball, which is competitive enough, some would argue, right? We will shift gears, and believe it or not, even though we're in the South, we're going to shift to hockey. Yep, hockey. I know it's 60 degrees out, but we're going to talk hockey anyway. For those of you who've worked in the market for a couple of years, you're probably well familiar with the Salute to Heroes hockey tournament. This is actually the 13th year of the tournament, and it's more than a charitable event. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen the competition level so high. I've attended a couple of these events, and you know, they get pretty competitive and a little rough and tumble. Just for those of you who aren't familiar with the setup, this is a charitable game between the police, who are teamed up with the sheriff's office, versus fire and medic, and it's all for a tremendous cause. I want to bring a guy up here who's no stranger to the event. In fact, he's the captain of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's hockey team, power forward. Right, this guy's been doing it for 13 years, and he's just a wizard on the ice. And don't get in his way, because he'll just plow through they call this guy the steamroller. Todd Bloom is going to talk a little bit about the event. More importantly, what folks can do to get involved and where that charity money goes to. Because all kidding aside, this is a top shelf event, and the areas where the money goes to, it's certainly a need. So without delay, Lieutenant Todd Bloom.
Thank you very much for that introduction. This game is the 13th year of our Salute to Heroes charity hockey game. We've raised in excess of $350,000 over that 13 years that has gone back to employees of the 4 departments in need. A range of, it's gone to family members who've lost a loved one in the line of duty. It's gone to active employees who have been injured in the line of duty. And it's a great cause, and we've fought hard to raise that money over the years. Now, speaking of the rough and tumble, we work hard to work together as the 4 organizations to sell tickets, and we compete with ticket sales, but we really compete on the ice. So when that puck drops, it does get a little physical out there between the 4 agencies getting involved. Before this year's game, it's going to be held, the hockey game will be at 3 p.m. on Sunday, March 11th at Bojangles Coliseum. Prior to the game, we're going to hold a community event in the parking lot that's open to anyone and everyone that wants to come out. There will be displays by the 4 organizations in the parking lot on display for the kids and families to come out and observe, see how we respond to stuff, to calls for service, the resources that the 4 departments have. We'll also have recruiting there for aspiring employees of the 4 departments. We hope to broaden that pool and get more people interested in coming into our line of work in the future. That said, that about wraps it up. Oh, tickets, here's a flyer here. Tickets can be purchased online, but there's additional fees with that. If you can see my email address there, dblum@cmpd.org. Anyone can email me, and I will route and get tickets to those individuals. That's the best way. They're $10 a piece, and 100% of that will go to an employee in need. Again, the 4 departments are selling those tickets. Any questions?
You guys are easy this morning.
Oh, thank you.
Lieutenant, we appreciate it. Did you have something?
Would you spell your name for them?
Yes. Todd, T-O-D-D, Bloom, B-L-U-M. And I'm a lieutenant, but I captain the police team. Every team has a captain and assistant captains.
Do you remember by chance how much you guys were able to raise last year or in previous years?
Yeah, well, the total, like I said, was in excess of $350,000. We raised, just our department raised just under $4,000 last year in ticket sales. I can't speak on the other 3 departments.
Appreciate your time, Lieutenant.
Thank you again.
Awesome stuff. Know how busy you are. And just to dovetail off what the Lieutenant was saying,
$350,000, and that money's going exactly where it's needed, and there's a great need, especially when it comes to officers in need, firemen and women in need. medic and sheriff. So March 11th over at the Bojangles, his email's on there, and anyone interested, please follow up, and we'll be happy to get that facilitated. So before we part company, anything that's looming for the greater good that we need to discuss this morning? Let me guess where this is going to start. Ali Shabbat, ladies and gentlemen, where we go.
Always come to me. So just want to get your reaction, Rob, about the police officers at city council pushing for higher salaries. Where does the department stand on that?
Stands very firmly. I think that it was a pretty good illustration of just how firmly we stand. You know, you had the big guy out there with them in support. On Monday night, Chief Putney was there, and you know, I've got to be a little delicate here. I know that this is something that's under consideration now by the City Council, and I don't in any way, shape, or form want to get in the way of that process, but I think we are encouraged as an organization to know that they listened. They listened intently to those officers who were there with their families, and it seems as though they're going to give this some serious consideration and make the appropriate decision on whether or not there's going to be a pay raise. You know, I don't think there's any big secret about just how difficult of a time that not only we are having in this department, but departments around the country in recruiting. You know, it's hard. This is a hard profession right now to get people to buy into. You know, maybe when you start to sweeten the incentive somewhat and increase pay and benefits and things of those nature, maybe people will give the profession a second look. I mean, I remember when I came on back in 1989, there were lines around the block of people that were just dying to get into this profession. Now, I mean, it's a hard sell. So, you know, is pay going to change that? I don't know. You know, I think it was one of them who said on Monday night in some of the coverage I saw, look, nobody's getting into this business to be rich, looking to provide for their families. And again, it's encouraging to know that the council's given this a serious look.
Rob, what does the department say about the fact that some officers, it's a morale issue? Right now, somebody said morale is probably the lowest.
Sure. I mean, why wouldn't it be? You know, when you are trying to make ends meet, I mean, how can that not erode morale and eat away at your morale? Of course. I mean, I don't think that's lost on anybody. Not at least the council as well. I'm sure they're paying very close attention to that. So does that come as a surprise? Absolutely not. No. You know, that would seem to be something that would make a lot of sense when people are having a hard time paying their bills and making ends meet. I would suspect that morale is a big issue going.
The lateral transfer campaign that the department has launched, is that impacting morale with the current officers?
Well, you know, I have no way of giving it a scientific barometer. I could talk about, you know, what I'm hearing anecdotally. You know, you have some officers who think that this is tremendous. We're bringing in some experienced, seasoned officers from sometimes some bigger agencies, and they're being brought in, and others who, you know, that aren't so crazy about the idea. You know, if look, you can't get two people to agree on what they're going to have for lunch, much less, you know, something as monumental as this. So it wouldn't surprise me or anyone here a bit that there are people who don't necessarily agree with every decision that's made in the organization. You know, and just to further that, those concerns also don't ring hollow on anyone here. I think that's one of the big reasons why the chief, one of his first executive orders here when he took over the department was to establish an internal advisory committee so he could hear that. Now, I haven't sat in on one in a bit. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if he is getting some really good, honest feedback from some of the members of his internal advisory committee on what their thoughts are on lateral hires. So, who else?
What's the next step at this point as far as salary raises for the officers? Where does it stand with the city?
It does. It stands with the city council right now, and I believe the chief is working with them. They had certain questions when it comes to retention and what that looks like, why it is that what we're hearing in exit interviews, why people do leave. I believe that they want more information on that to find out what it is that we're seeing when folks leave the organization. So I still think that there's some conversation that needs to develop and occur. But again, you know, and call me Pollyannish on this thing and naive. I mean, I'm encouraged to hear that council listened so intently. And I mean, let's face it, that was some display. Monday night. You know, the optics were pretty powerful there, and they're listening. You know, I know they're listening, and I think it's more than lip service. They realize just how valuable the men and women of this organization are for our community. So that's encouraging to hear, Alex.
What is starting salary?
I believe it's somewhere in the 40s, don't hold me to that, but there's a different pay step program, and I can get you the specific pay step chart, Joe, because it varies on the experience, and I believe if you speak Spanish, there's an incentive there. So it's not cut and dry, but I believe it's somewhere, and Lieutenant may be able to verify, about $44,000 roughly is what a starting salary is for a brand new officer, and I'll be more than happy to get you that pay scale.
Rob, can you send out later, can you send me how many officers left?
Yes.
Last year or so far this year? I don't know how the latest numbers.
Yes.
are.
Yeah.
How many were brought on and how many left?
Yes.
And what the vacancy is?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you include, I know reasons for leaving aren't required, but if they gave one, can you include that?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Shane. I want to say this year there were 8 who had left since January 1st. Now everybody doesn't have to tell us why they're leaving. Out of the 8, I think 4 did, and 4 decided they wanted to go into non-law enforcement profession, private sector, and 2 out of the 4 decided they were going to go into the private sector, non-law enforcement. The other 2 went with a federal law enforcement agency. The other 4 didn't tell us why they were leaving. So out of the 8, 4 told us why, 2 private sector, 2 federal. So that's what we're hearing on the ground. But I'll do my best to get you some last year numbers as well, just to give you a little bit bigger of a body of work on that and what we're seeing.
And those 8 were from this year?
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who else? All right. Well, I will get that out. Jane, if you would, or Colleen, one of you, just send me an email, because I'll wind up forgetting the minute I walk out of here, because something else will cook off, and we'll get those numbers out to you in the short order. Keep an eye on that Salute to Heroes thing. It really is a big deal. And it's a great event, great family event too. So if you have time, make your way out there. Please push it. The proceeds go to some tremendous charities that are very much in need. So we appreciate your time.